Alright, so I'm going to kind of do this out of order. I'm going to get to the main idea right now, and if you want to watch the rest of it, it's fine. But basically, this is my repaired deck. And I'll tell you everything I did to repair the deck and what I'm doing going forward with it. So first and foremost, tons and tons and tons of scraping. Sat there and literally just went back and forth, getting up as much of the Deckover as possible. I picked something like this up at Lowe's. It's like $9. Comes with a really sharp razor, and then you could flip it around and it's more of a dull razor. Even things like putty knife, just to kind of get in there and get into like little grooves and whatever. Getting in between these boards here is such a pain in the neck. Actually had to use tweezers at one point to get some of the stuff out. Got that out. Used tons of sandpaper. So I have an orbital and I have a little palm sander. I used 120 grit to kind of smooth it out, and what I don't have here shown, I was using a 40 grit to really cut into some of the Deckover that just refused to come off. This is not Deckover. I'll explain that in a second. For parts of the wood that were damaged but salvageable, meaning that might have been like a knot in the wood that rotted or just didn't look right, I used plastic wood filler by DAP. And you kind of just like a spackle, you throw it on there, let it sit for 2 to 4 hours depending on the weather, and then once again orbital, palm sander, even by hand if you wanted to, with like a 120 grit, smooth it out. Wear a mask. Really dusty stuff. Okay, for any other piece of wood that I could not fix, we ended up cutting and replacing and just putting replacement boards in. And then once everything was said and done, this is what I used. So I did not use a Deckover this time. I did use Behr, but this is just basically a paint stain, okay? White, and in the same color as I had before, like a chocolate, okay? And this just basically goes on, and it paints on just like a regular paint. I like the finish of this way, way, way better. It has a bit of a sheen to it. It almost gives like a Trex deck effect. It covered really, really nice, and a little bit actually goes a long way. And that was that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to splice back in the other videos that I shot when I was doing this process. And if you feel like watching that, be my guest. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to ask. I really feel sorry for anyone who's going through this. This was a pain in the neck project. It really, really was. But as you can see, this product is pretty cool. I'm curious to see how well it lasts in a year or so. Or 2 years for that matter. I mean, if I have to restain it every couple of years, that's totally expected. I'm fine with that. But we'll see. From a coverage perspective, though, it covers really nice. I like it a lot better than the Trex Deckover stuff. I'll go down here for a second. And I have yet to do anything down here yet. So the old Deckover stuff is here. So this all has to get scraped up, and I'll use a scraper to get all this up. Okay, but you can see, granted, this is a little bit older, but it's got a duller finish. Even when it cures, it's a little dull. Where this has like a nice kind of a shine to it almost, you know? And it hoses off really nice, and it's just smoother. It doesn't have that textured, you know, kind of like sandy popcorn ceiling effect kind of thing, if you want to say. Where this is smooth. So, I'm happy. It almost gives the wood like a synthetic wood kind of feel, but that's pretty neat. And that's it. If you have any questions, let me know. Alright, so the deck is a mess right now because we're in the final stage of prepping. But as you can see, I got the bulk majority of all the stain, the Deckover stuff, off. What a nightmare. As you see also, I got a bunch of boards here that I did have to replace. They were just completely rotted and waterlogged. And unfortunately, that could not stay. I'll point a few things out here, which is interesting. So on the banisters here, this stuff stuck like glue. Like, this is not coming off. However, up above, it did not stick like glue. So, and there were some just in the process of pulling some of the stuff off. I did actually nick the wood, and I'll show you the tools I used to get a lot of this stuff off. I did not use a chemical. I've seen too many videos online, people trying to use a chemical, and it didn't work. So in the process of pulling some of the stain off, or the Deckover off, I did damage some of the wood. So I filled it with, I've been using this, the DAP wood putty kind of thing. It goes on like a spackle basically, and then it takes about 2 to 4 hours to finally cure. And then I've been using just a Ryobi Orbital, and I also have a palm sander down here as well, like Black & Decker palm sander, and like a what grit am I using? What is this? 120 grit. So I'm using a 120 grit paper just to kind of sand it down and cut it down, and that's it. And this is all going to get repainted. I am not using Deckover again this way. What I will be using this time is another Behr stain, but it's a solid stain, and just paint right over. It's supposed to fill in little tiny cracks and whatever like that, but it doesn't go on like this thick shell. As you can see, I'm still peeling this up, and I have to get all this loose stuff up before I even think about putting the new stuff on. So I'll start doing that hopefully by lunch. And we're going to do the top area first and the stairs going down, and then once that's all done, then we'll work on the floor. So I'll diary this whole process and share it with you guys, and hopefully it's the end of this entire saga. It's been going on for, I guess, quite too long. I was at Home Depot yesterday. I was speaking with one of the people at the paint section, and they said my story sounds like just about everyone else's story that's been using this Deckover product. So that's it. I'll talk to you soon. All right, so we scraped and sanded the deck down as much as we human possible. To give it credit, some of this stuff just doesn't come off, and when you try to pull it or gouge, it gouges the wood. So we cleaned everything up the best we possibly can, and this time we're still using Behr, but we're doing something like this, the porch and patio floor paint. This is what we did for the handrails and whatnot. And then similar, same color as before, chocolate. And we're using this, waterproofing stain and sealer. So it's not like a shell like the Deckover. It's just basically a non-transparent sealer, essentially. And that's where we're at right now. So curious to see what this looks like in a year or so. It looks amazing right now, but we'll give it time to see.